My name is Sophia Ramirez. I'm 32 years old, and let me tell you, the story I'm about to share turned my whole world on its head, shaking up everything I believed about family bonds, blind loyalty, and what it really means to stand strong in your own achievements. It started with a gut-punch betrayal that came out of nowhere, exposing lies that had been simmering for years. And in the end, it taught me that sometimes the people closest to you are the ones holding you back the most. It was a typical Thursday afternoon in my classroom at Lincoln High in Los Angeles. The bell had rung, and my juniors were packing up after a lively debate on the civil rights movement, the kind of session where you see that light bulb moment in their eyes, and it reminds you why you teach. I was erasing the whiteboard, chalk dust floating in the air like tiny ghosts, when my phone buzzed on the desk. It was a text from Lila Thompson, my brother Ethan's fiancée. Lila's one of those people who can make anyone feel welcome with just a smile, and she'd been nothing but kind since she came into our lives. The message popped up. "Sophia, this is super awkward, but why'd you decide to step down as a bridesmaid? Ethan mentioned you were slammed with work and didn't want to steal the show. We're all bummed, but I get it if things are hectic." I stared at the screen, my heart dropping like a stone in my chest. Step down? Steal the show? The words blurred as I reread them, my mind racing. I hadn't stepped down from anything. Hell, I'd been pumped when Ethan asked me to be in the wedding party months ago. We'd grown up like two peas in a pod, sharing everything from secrets to scraped knees. This was supposed to be our family's big moment, a celebration of love and unity. But now, it felt like a slap in the face, like I'd been erased from the picture without even a heads up. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling a bit as I typed back. "Lila, what do you mean? I never said that. When did Ethan tell you this?" Her reply came quick, like a follow-up punch. "Last week. He said you called and bowed out gracefully. The wedding's in 2 weeks. Everything's set, including the dresses." 2 weeks? The classroom spun for a second, the fluorescent lights buzzing louder in my ears. How could my own brother, the guy who'd taught me to ride a bike and defended me from schoolyard bullies, pull something like this? Flashes of our childhood hit me hard, running through the sprinklers in our Pasadena backyard on hot summer days. Ethan always letting me win the race to the ice cream truck. We'd been unbreakable back then, or so I thought. But now, this? It didn't add up, and a knot twisted in my gut, whispering that something darker was at play. I sank into my chair, the worn leather creaking under me, and replayed every recent family dinner in my head. Ethan's distant stares, Mom's offhand comments about my busy life overshadowing things. Was this jealousy? Resentment bubbling up because I'd carved out a solid career while he struggled? The doubt started small, like a crack in the sidewalk, but it grew fast, pushing me to dig deeper. I couldn't just let this slide. I had to uncover why he'd lied, why he'd cut me out like I was some loose end. What was he hiding that was worth shattering our bond over? And before we get back to the story, would you be kind enough to give this video a like? You know, every single like means a lot to me. It's the kind of encouragement that keeps me creating and bringing you even better stories tomorrow. If this hits home, tap like and subscribe. There's more you won't see coming. But as I sat there, staring at my phone, one question burned in my mind. What secret was Ethan protecting that could tear our family apart? To understand how this betrayal cut so deep, I need to take you back to where it all began. Our childhood in the sunny sprawl of Pasadena, California, where life felt like a postcard from a simpler time. Our family was classic middle class, tucked into a ranch-style house on a quiet street lined with palm trees. Dad was a mechanic, his hands always stained with grease, humming old rock tunes while tinkering in the garage. Mom worked part-time as a nurse's aide, her scrubs wrinkled from long shifts, but she'd still whip up tacos for dinner like it was nothing. Ethan, my big brother by 3 years, and I were thick as thieves, chasing dreams and trouble in equal measure under the endless SoCal sun. Our backyard was our kingdom. I can still smell the freshly cut grass, hear the squeak of the swing set as Ethan pushed me higher, laughing when I shrieked for him to stop. One summer, when I was 9 and he was 12, he decided it was time I learned to surf. We piled into Dad's beat-up van, the one with the sticky seats, and headed to Huntington Beach. The ocean was a beast that day, waves crashing like they had a score to settle. I was terrified, clutching my second-hand board, but Ethan was right there, steadying me. "Come on, Soph, you're tougher than these waves," he said, his grin all confidence. He held the board while I wobbled, cheering louder than the seagulls when I finally stood up, even if it was for 3 shaky seconds before wiping out. That was Ethan, my protector, my cheerleader, the brother who made me believe I could do anything. But even back then, there were cracks. Mom had a way of putting Ethan on a pedestal. His Little League trophies lined the living room shelf, shiny and proud, while my spelling bee ribbons got tucked in a drawer. "Ethan's our star," she'd say, ruffling his hair at family barbecues while neighbors nodded. I didn't mind much at first. I was proud of him too. But her words to me were different, sharper. "Sophia, girls have to work harder to get noticed. Don't count on charm like your brother." It wasn't mean, just matter of fact, like she was passing down some hard-earned wisdom from her own life. Still, it planted a seed of doubt, like maybe my best wasn't enough unless it was perfect. School widened the gap. Ethan was the golden boy at Pasadena High. Quarterback, homecoming court, the kid who could charm teachers out of detention with a quick joke. His parties spilled into our backyard, music thumping, kids sneaking beers from coolers. I was the quieter one, nose buried in books, acing AP history and volunteering at the library. Mom would beam at Ethan's game highlights, clipping articles from the local paper, while my straight-A report cards got a nod and a "keep it up, honey." I remember one night, sitting at the kitchen table doing homework, overhearing her on the phone. "Ethan's got that spark, you know. Sophia's so serious. She'll be fine, but she's got to loosen up." I gripped my pencil tighter, wondering if serious meant I was doing it wrong. Our cousin Marco, who lived a few blocks over, was a constant in those years. He was a year older than Ethan, all lanky limbs and big dreams of being a DJ. He'd show up at our house with a boombox, blasting Tupac, and we'd all dance in the driveway until Mom yelled about the neighbors. One 4th of July, when the 3 of us were setting off bottle rockets in the cul-de-sac, Marco pulled me aside. "You're the smart one, Soph. Ethan's got the charm, but you're gonna run the show one day." I laughed it off, but his words stuck, like a quiet promise I carried into adulthood. Even then, I sensed something brewing with Ethan. He'd tease me about my grades. Nerd alert! But sometimes his smile didn't reach his eyes. Once, in middle school, I overheard him telling Marco, "Soph's gonna be some big shot, and I'll just be the guy pouring her coffee." He laughed, but there was an edge to it, like he was already measuring himself against me. I brushed it off, figuring it was just brotherly ribbing, but looking back, I wonder if that was the first spark of resentment, the kind that could make him lie about me years later, cutting me out of his wedding to hide something bigger. Sitting in my classroom now, that text from Lila still burning in my mind, those memories hit like a tidal wave. How did we go from surfboards and bottle rockets to this? Was Ethan's lie about me stepping down just wedding stress? Or was there a deeper secret? Like maybe he was tangled up with someone else, not just Lila? The thought twisted in my gut, sharp and wrong, but I couldn't shake it. I needed answers, and I wasn't going to stop until I found them. Sitting in my classroom, Lila's text about Ethan uninviting me from the wedding, still stinging like a fresh cut. I couldn't shake the memories of our childhood. Those sunny days when we were unstoppable together. But as I stared at my phone, the question gnawed at me. Was Ethan's lie just wedding jitters? Or was something darker, like an affair, lurking beneath? To understand how we got to this breaking point, I need to take you through the years that pulled us apart, when our paths split and the seeds of resentment took root. College was where the divide really started. I threw myself into UC Berkeley on a partial scholarship, majoring in education because I wanted to make a difference, the way my favorite high school teacher had sparked my love for history. Berkeley was a whirlwind, late nights in the library, coffee-stained notes, and volunteering at community centers in Oakland, tutoring kids who reminded me of my younger self. I'd walk across campus, the eucalyptus trees rustling in the breeze, feeling like I was building something solid, something mine. By my junior year, I was leading a student group for future teachers, organizing workshops, and even presenting at a state education conference. It was exhausting, but electric, like I was finally stepping into the person I was meant to be. Ethan, meanwhile, was at Cal State Northridge, closer to home. He'd picked business because it sounded good, but his college years were more about keg stands than study sessions. I'd get calls from him, half drunk, laughing about some party where he'd charmed his way into free drinks. "Soph, you gotta live a little. Come down for a weekend." I'd laugh, promising to visit, but I was too busy juggling classes and part-time jobs. He scraped by with C's, flunked a semester once, and eventually dropped out to take a sales job at a car dealership in the Bay Area. "It's temporary," he told me over burgers at In-N-Out during one of my rare visits home. "Gonna make bank and figure it out." But his eyes darted away, like he was already comparing his shaky start to my steady climb. That's where he met Lila. It was at a dealership networking event in San Francisco, the kind with cheap wine and forced small talk. Lila was a real estate agent, all bright energy and quick wit, closing deals with a smile that could sell sand in a desert. Ethan was smitten from the jump. They bonded over bad appetizers and stories about growing up in chaotic families. She was from San Diego, raised by a single mom who worked 2 jobs. "She's the real deal, Soph," Ethan told me over the phone, his voice lighter than I'd heard in years. "She gets me." A year later, he proposed on a hike in Big Sur, the ocean crashing below as he slipped a ring on her finger. I was thrilled, texting Lila heart emojis and planning a family dinner to celebrate. But even then, the family dynamic was shifting. At that dinner, in Mom's dining room, with its faded floral wallpaper, the air was thick with her usual commentary. We were passing around Dad's famous carne asada, the sizzle still fresh from the grill, when Mom turned to me, her fork paused mid-air. "Sophia, you're doing so well at that school of yours, but don't let it take over your life. Teaching's noble, but you need balance. Maybe a boyfriend?" Her tone was light, but it landed like a jab. Ethan chuckled, piling rice on his plate. "Yeah, sis, you're gonna burn out chasing those teacher awards." I forced a smile, my cheeks hot, but inside I was reeling. Why was my success always a cautionary tale? Later, as I helped Mom clear the table, the clink of plates loud in the quiet kitchen, she doubled down. "Honey, Ethan's got Lila now, a big wedding to plan. Your career's great, but it's intense. People notice, you know? Don't make him feel small." I gripped a dish towel, water dripping down my wrist. "Mom, I'm just doing my job. Why's that a problem?" She sighed, wiping her hands on her apron. "It's not a problem, but family's about balance. Ethan's got his own struggles. Sales isn't easy. Just ease up a bit." I nodded, but her words stuck like gum on my shoe. Was my drive really casting a shadow over Ethan? The distance grew when I moved to LA for a teaching job at Lincoln High, a tough but rewarding school where I could see real change in my students. I'd landed a promotion to department lead by 30, running after-school programs and speaking at local education summits. Ethan, meanwhile, was hitting rough patches at the dealership, slow sales, rumors of layoffs. He'd call less, his texts short and clipped. Once, I offered to help him polish his resume, thinking a career shift might boost him. We met at a coffee shop in Pasadena, the smell of roasted beans filling the air. I slid a draft across the table, marked up with suggestions. This could get you into tech sales, ETH, better commissions. He scanned it, then pushed it back, his jaw tight. Thanks, Soph, but I'm good. Don't need my little sister fixing my life. His tone was sharp, a flash of something bitter in his eyes, like my help was a reminder of his stumbles. That moment lingered, a warning I didn't fully catch. I thought Ethan's mood was just stress, wedding plans piling up, maybe pressure from Lila's family to impress. Sitting in my classroom now, though, Lila's text fresh in my mind, that coffee shop scene replayed like a bad movie. Had Ethan been jealous all along, not just stressed? Was he pushing me out of the wedding to hide something bigger than pre-wedding nerves? The pieces weren't fitting, but I knew one thing. Whatever he was covering up, it was about to unravel, and I wasn't going to let it stay buried. With Ethan's bitter words from that coffee shop still echoing in my head, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. His sharp tone, that flash of resentment in his eyes. Was he really just stressed about the wedding? Or was there a deeper grudge festering, one that could explain why he'd later cut me out? As I sat in my classroom, Lila's text about my uninvited and burning a hole in my pocket, I realized the cracks in our family had started widening months earlier, during the whirlwind of wedding planning. It all kicked off 6 months ago when Ethan called me one evening while I was grading papers in my Silver Lake apartment, the city lights twinkling outside like a sea of stars. "Soph, you're my rock," he said, his voice warm over the phone. "Will you be a bridesmaid? Lila's obsessed with you, and it'd mean everything." I nearly dropped my red pen, squealing like a kid. "Hell yes, I'm in!" We laughed, and for a moment, it felt like we were back in our Pasadena backyard, plotting adventures. Lila and I dove into planning, spending weekends traipsing around Southern California, hunting for the perfect vibe. One Saturday, we hit a bridal boutique in downtown LA, the kind with chandeliers and overpriced champagne. Lila twirled in a flowy white gown, her laugh bouncing off the mirrors. "Soph, you're gonna look killer in this blue dress," she said, holding up a sleek number. I grinned, sipping my mimosa, feeling like part of something special. We scouted venues too, landing on a vineyard in Napa Valley, rows of grapevines stretching under a golden sun, perfect for their California dream wedding. Over coffee at a trendy cafe nearby, Lila and I pored over Pinterest boards, picking string lights and rustic tables. "You're a lifesaver," she said, squeezing my hand. "Ethan's so lucky to have you as his sister." Her warmth wrapped around me like a blanket, but even then, I felt a pang of loneliness. My career was soaring, department lead at Lincoln High, speaking gigs at education conferences, but it came with late nights and an empty apartment. Was this what Mom meant by balance? The thought nagged, but I pushed it down, focusing on Lila's excitement. Things shifted at one of our Sunday family brunches, the kind Mom hosted with platters of pancakes and bacon sizzling on the stove. The dining room smelled of coffee and syrup, and we were all crammed around the table. Dad cracking dad jokes, Ethan scrolling his phone, Lila chatting about floral arrangements. Mom, stirring her coffee, turned to me with that look, the one that always preceded a lecture. "Sophia, you're working too hard again, aren't you? All those late nights at school? Don't let it overshadow the wedding." Her words landed like a pebble in still water, rippling tension. I forced a laugh, cutting my pancakes. "Mom, I'm just helping out. It's Ethan's big day." She raised an eyebrow. "Exactly. It's their moment. Your achievements are great, but don't make it about you." Ethan didn't look up, but his fork paused, and I caught a flicker of something. Annoyance? Guilt? In his tight jaw. Later, as I stacked dishes in the sink, the hot water stinging my hands. I confided in my friend Jess, a fellow teacher at Lincoln High who'd become my go-to for venting. We met at a dive bar in Echo Park, the jukebox playing Springsteen, neon lights casting a glow on our beers. "It's like Mom thinks my job's a problem," I said, peeling the label off my bottle. Jess leaned forward, her braids swinging. "Girl, you're killing it at work, and they're acting like it's a crime. Ethan's probably stressed about the wedding budget. Dealership's been slow, right?" I nodded, but her words sparked a new worry. Ethan had been cagey lately, dodging my texts, rushing off calls. At a recent winery tasting, he'd barely made eye contact, muttering about work when I asked about the guest list. Was he pulling away because of money troubles, or was it me? That night, alone in my apartment, the hum of the city outside my window. I replayed Mom's words and Ethan's distance. My success, my long hours, my promotions, felt like a double-edged sword. I was proud, but it was isolating, like I was running a race no one else could see. And Ethan? He was my big brother, the guy who'd taught me to surf, but now he felt like a stranger. Jess's comment about his job stuck with me. If money was tight, why hadn't he said anything? The thought crept in, quiet but sharp. Was he hiding something financial, something he didn't want me, or Lila, to know? It was a hunch, but it was enough to keep me up, staring at the ceiling, wondering what he was keeping in the shadows. As I lay awake in my Silver Lake apartment, the city's hum of faint pulse outside my window. Jess's words about Ethan's possible money troubles churned in my mind. His distance at the winery, Mom's pointed comments about my success overshadowing the wedding. It all felt like pieces of a puzzle I couldn't yet solve. Was Ethan pulling away because of financial stress? Or was there something deeper driving a wedge between us? I was about to find out, and it hit me like a freight train. A month before the wedding, I was at a school fundraiser in Lincoln High's gym, the air thick with the smell of popcorn and sweat from kids shooting hoops for charity. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I stepped outside to check it, expecting a work email. Instead, it was a text from Ethan. "Hey, Soph, about the bridesmaid thing. Lila and I think it's best if you just come as a guest. You're swamped with work, and we don't want to pile on. No hard feelings, right?" I stood frozen in the parking lot, the sodium lights casting long shadows, my heart pounding like I'd just sprinted a mile. Swamped? I'd cleared my calendar for their big day, even turned down a conference gig. This wasn't a request. It was a dismissal, cold and final. I dialed Ethan immediately, pacing between parked cars, the asphalt gritty under my sneakers. "What the hell, Ethan?" I said when he picked up, my voice sharper than I meant. "You're uninviting me? We're family. Why are you sidelining me like this?" He sighed, that heavy big brother sigh I knew too well. "Soph, it's not a big deal. Mom suggested it. Said your single life and all your teacher awards might make Lila feel, I don't know, less special. Plus, you've got that school event soon, right?" Event? That was weeks after the wedding. "That's bull, Ethan," I snapped. "I made time. What's really going on?" He mumbled something about stress, then hung up quick, leaving me staring at my phone. The call ended screen mocking me. That night, I couldn't sleep. My apartment felt too small, the ceiling fan clicking like a metronome to my racing thoughts. I sprawled on my couch, takeout sushi growing cold on the coffee table, and scrolled through old photos on my phone. There was Ethan and me at Disneyland, Mickey ears tilted, his arms slung around my shoulders. Another from a family camping trip, him teaching me to skip rocks across a lake, laughing when mine sank like a brick. How did we get from that to this? Mom's words from brunch echoed, "Don't make it about you," and Ethan's dodge on the phone felt like a cover. Was he jealous, or was he hiding something worse? The next morning, Still rattled, I was at school early, setting up for a history club meeting. One of my students, Jamal, lingered after, his backpack slung low. "Miss Ramirez, you look stressed," he said, hesitating. "My dad's been weird lately, too. Gambling online, fighting with Mom over money." I froze, his words hitting too close to home. "I'm sorry, Jamal," I said, softening. "That's tough. You talking to him about it?" He shrugged, eyes down. "Trying. He lies, though." I nodded, a chill running through me. Was Ethan lying too? Jamal's story stuck with me, a mirror to my own doubts. Desperate for answers, I logged into our family's shared banking app. Dad had set it up years ago for emergencies, and Ethan and I both had access. Scrolling through the account on my laptop, the screen's blue glow harsh in my dim kitchen, I spotted red flags, withdrawals labeled miscellaneous, $2,000 here, $1,500 there, totaling over $15,000 in 3 months. Ethan's name was on every transaction. My stomach dropped. This wasn't wedding stress. This was something bigger, something he didn't want me to see. I needed confirmation. I called our cousin Marco, who bartended at a casino in Reno, where we'd all gone for Ethan's bachelor party last year. The phone rang twice, and he picked up, his voice drowned by clinking glasses and slot machine chimes. "Soph, what's good?" he said, cheerful as ever. I cut to the chase. "Marco, has Ethan been to the casino lately?" A pause, then he lowered his voice. "Yeah, a couple times this month. Said he was blowing off steam. Lost some cash at the slots, but he didn't seem too worried. Why?" My grip tightened on the phone, my pulse racing. "Just checking. Thanks, Marco." As I hung up, the pieces started clicking together, but the picture was still blurry. What was Ethan hiding, and why was he so desperate to keep me out of the wedding? As I hung up with Marco, his words about Ethan losing cash at the slots ringing in my ears like a bad echo, the pieces of the puzzle started snapping together. But the picture was still hazy, twisted. Wedding stress? Maybe, but this felt bigger, darker. What if Ethan was hiding an affair, some side fling that explained the secrecy, the distance? The thought made my stomach churn, a sour mix of betrayal and disbelief. I couldn't just sit on it. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I needed hard facts, not hunches. In LA, hiring a private investigator sounds like something out of a noir film, but a teacher friend had slipped me a name after her own messy divorce. Vince Russo, ex-cop turned PI, specializing in family matters. I met Vince at a dingy diner off the 405, the kind with vinyl booths cracked from years of use and coffee that tasted like burnt regret. He was in his 50s, broad-shouldered, with a salt and pepper beard, nursing a black coffee as I slid into the seat across from him. "Sophia Ramirez?" he grunted, shaking my hand with a grip like a vice. I nodded, pulling out my phone to show him the banking screenshots and Marco's vague details. "My brother's acting shady. Uninvited me from his wedding, lying to his fiancée. I think he might be seeing someone on the side, using family money to fund it." Vince leaned back, his eyes narrowing like he'd heard this tune before. "Affairs are messy, kid. But let's check the money trail first. 500 up front, and I'll dig." A week later, Vince called me to meet at the same diner. My heart hammered as I drove there, traffic crawling like molasses on the freeway. He slid a manila envelope across the table, his face grim. "Not what you thought," he said, tapping it. I opened it with shaky hands, photos spilling out. Ethan at a blackjack table in Reno, eyes bloodshot, chips dwindling. Chips, time-stamped receipts from online betting sites, debts racking up to $30,000. No mistress, just a gambling hole he'd dug himself into. The red herring of an affair crumbled, replaced by this gut-wrenching reality. He's been hitting ATMs at casinos, using the family account like his personal piggy bank. Vince explained, his voice low. Online, too. Sports bets, poker rooms. It's an addiction, plain and simple. I stared at a photo of Ethan hunched over a slot machine, his face lit by the garish glow, looking like a stranger. Why hide it from me? I whispered, my throat tight. Vince sighed, rubbing his beard. Seen it 100 times. Shame eats at 'em. They push away the ones who'd call 'em out. But here's the kicker. Your mom's name pops up on a couple transfers. Looks like she knew. Maybe even helped cover a few losses. The reversal hit like a sucker punch. Mom? The woman who'd lectured me on balance, who'd favored Ethan all our lives? She was in on it? She probably thought she was protecting him, Vince added, his tone softening like a father giving advice. Families do crazy things for love, but secrets like this? They fester. Confront him, but smart. Get proof locked down first. I left the diner reeling, the envelope burning a hole in my bag. That afternoon, I texted Lila for coffee, needing to test the waters without blowing everything up. We met at a beachside spot in Santa Monica, the ocean breeze whipping our hair as we sat outside with iced lattes. Lila looked radiant in her sundress, but her eyes searched mine when I hesitated. What's up, Soph? You seem off. I took a deep breath, the salt air sharp in my lungs. It's Ethan, that bridesmaid thing. He lied. I didn't step down. And I think he's in trouble. Money stuff, maybe gambling. Her face paled, hand tightening on her cup. Gambling? He's been weird about the budget, insisting on paying for extras like the fireworks. Said it was bonuses, but work's been slow. I showed her the banking snippets. No full details, just enough to plant the seed. I hired a guy to look into it. No affair, thank God, but debts. And Mom might know. Lila's eyes welled up, but she nodded, fierce. We confront him together? I shook my head. Not yet. Let's keep it between us for now. Gather more before the wedding explodes. She hugged me tight, her perfume floral and comforting. Your family, Soph. We'll fix this. As we parted, the sun dipping low over the waves, I felt a fragile alliance forming, but the reversal about Mom gnawed at me. How deep did this go? I needed to face Ethan soon, but first, more digging. What else was buried in those lies? After leaving Lila at that Santa Monica cafe, the ocean's waves still echoing in my ears, I clutched the manila envelope from Vince, its weight heavier than the photos inside. Ethan's gambling debts, Mom's possible cover-up. It was a betrayal wrapped in secrets, and I couldn't let it fester any longer. The wedding was days away, and I needed answers, not just for me, but for Lila, for our family. So I drove straight to Ethan's apartment in Glendale, my hands gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. I pulled up to his building, a stucco complex with peeling paint, the kind of place that screamed temporary, but he'd lived there for years. The evening air was warm, carrying the faint scent of jasmine from a neighbor's garden. I didn't call ahead, didn't want him dodging me again. When he opened the door, barefoot in a faded Lakers tee, his eyes widened. Soph? What's up? His voice was casual, but his shoulders tensed, like he knew this wasn't a social call. I held up the envelope, my voice steady but sharp. We need to talk. Now. He stepped aside, letting me in, the living room cluttered with empty beer cans and a half-packed box of wedding decor. I didn't sit. I dumped the photos on his coffee table. Ethan at the blackjack table. Receipts from betting sites. The damning bank records. Explain this, I said, my finger jabbing at a time-stamped withdrawal. His face drained of color, eyes darting to the photos like they might disappear. Where'd you get these? He stammered, stepping back. Doesn't matter, I snapped. You're draining the family account, lying to Lila, uninviting me from your wedding to hide it. What the hell, Ethan? He ran a hand through his hair, pacing toward the kitchen counter. It's not what it looks like, Soph. I had a rough patch, okay? Mom said you'd make a big deal. Blow it out of proportion. Mom? My voice cracked, the room spinning. She knew you were gambling away thousands and helped you cover it? Ethan froze, realizing his slip, then slumped onto the couch, head in his hands. She loaned me some cash to keep Lila from finding out. Said it'd stress her before the wedding. The air felt thick, like I couldn't breathe. Mom, who'd always put him first, was now his accomplice, shielding his mess while throwing me under the bus. And uninviting me? I pressed, stepping closer, my voice low but shaking. Was that her idea too? Or yours? He looked up, eyes glassy. Mine, he admitted, voice barely above a whisper. You're always so perfect, Soph. Teacher of the year, speaking at conferences, saving the damn world. I couldn't handle you there, shining while I'm drowning in debt. I was jealous, okay? The confession hit like a punch, raw and jagged. My big brother, my protector, had been measuring himself against me and coming up short. I wanted to scream, but instead, I sat across from him, the coffee table a chasm between us. Ethan, you could have told me. I'd have helped. I'm fixing it, he said quickly, leaning forward, his voice desperate. I've got a plan. Cutting back, working extra shifts. Lila won't know, and the wedding's still on. Promise you won't tell her, Soph. His eyes pleaded, but his words felt hollow, like a Band-Aid on a broken bone. I nodded, not because I believed him, but because I needed time to think. As I stood to leave, I spotted his phone on the counter, buzzing with a notification. A betting app, a new $500 wager placed that morning. My heart sank. His promises were smoke, and I was done swallowing lies. Driving back to Silver Lake, the LA skyline blurring through my tears, I felt trust crumbling like sand. Ethan's jealousy, Mom's complicity. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about a family unraveling, and I was caught in the middle. The wedding was looming, and I had to decide. Let it slide and keep the peace, or blow it open and risk everything. What would I find if I kept pushing? The drive home from Ethan's apartment left me raw. His empty promises and that damning betting app notification burning in my mind like a neon sign. Mom's complicity, his jealousy. It was a tangled mess of lies, and I was stuck in the middle, torn between keeping the peace and blowing it all open. The wedding was tomorrow, and as I tossed in bed, the LA skyline glowing faintly through my blinds, I knew I couldn't let Ethan's secrets fester any longer. I had to go to Napa, invited or not, and see this through. The morning of the wedding, I threw on a simple navy dress, grabbed my keys, and hit the road for Napa Valley. The 4-hour drive felt endless, the California hills rolling by in a blur of gold and green. The vineyard venue was straight out of a postcard, rows of grapevines stretching toward the horizon, fairy lights twinkling in the late afternoon sun, the air thick with the sweet scent of blooming jasmine and wine barrels. Guests milled around in pastel dresses and sharp suits, laughter floating over the clink of champagne flutes. I parked far enough away to avoid notice, slipping into the crowd like a ghost, my heart pounding as I scanned for familiar faces. From the edge of the ceremony lawn, I spotted Ethan near the altar, looking sharp in a charcoal tux, but fidgeting with his tie like a nervous kid. Lila was radiant in white, her smile bright as she greeted guests, oblivious to the storm brewing. Mom stood nearby, chatting with relatives, her floral dress fluttering in the breeze. I stayed back, half hidden behind an oak tree, watching my family move through the day like actors in a play I wasn't part of. My chest tightened, memories of Ethan teaching me to surf, our backyard races, now clashing with his lies. How could he stand there, smiling, while hiding debts that could ruin Lila's future? The betrayal stung deeper in this picture-perfect setting, like a crack in a polished mirror. As I blended into the crowd, a familiar voice called my name. "Miss Ramirez?" I turned to see Jamal, my student from Lincoln High, in a borrowed suit, his mom beside him. "What are you doing here?" he asked, eyes wide. I forced a smile, my stomach twisting. "Family wedding," I said softly. "Didn't expect to see you either." His mom explained they were distant cousins of Lila's, invited last minute. Jamal leaned in, voice low. "You okay? You look like you're on a mission." I laughed it off, but his words hit home. I was on a mission, and running into him felt like a sign, his own story of his dad's gambling echoing mine. "Just figuring things out," I said, squeezing his shoulder before slipping away. The ceremony began, string music swelling as Lila walked down the aisle, Ethan's face softening as he took her hand. I stood at the back, my fingers clutching my purse where Vince's photos and bank records were tucked inside. Watching them exchange vows, I felt a tug of love for my brother, the one who'd always had my back. But it was drowned by the weight of his secrets. Mom's proud smile as she dabbed her eyes twisted the knife deeper. She'd known, helped him hide it, and let me take the fall. Every I do felt like a countdown to a truth I couldn't ignore. As the crowd moved to the reception tent, fairy lights glowing against the dusk, I lingered near the open bar, my pulse racing. Ethan's lies, Mom's cover-up, they weren't just personal anymore. They threatened Lila, the wedding, everything. I'd planned to confront him privately, but the photos in my purse felt heavier with every step. Could I really stay silent through toasts and dances, pretending everything was fine? No. This had to end tonight. I edged toward the stage where the band was setting up, my hand brushing the microphone stand. A server offered me a glass of wine, but I waved it off, my resolve hardening. As the MC announced the first speeches, I took a deep breath, stepped forward, and reached for the mic, my heart thundering. What I was about to say would change everything, and there was no going back. My hand closed around the microphone, the cool metal grounding me as I stepped onto the stage. The Napa Valley reception tent glowing with fairy lights and the hum of celebration. The weight of Vince's photos in my purse, Ethan's lies, and Mom's complicity pressed against my chest, but I couldn't back down now. The crowd quieted, glasses clinking as eyes turned to me. Sophia, the uninvited sister, crashing the wedding like a storm. Lila's smile faltered from her table. Ethan's jaw tightened, and Mom's eyes widened with a flicker of panic. I took a shaky breath, the mic amplifying it like a heartbeat. "Lila, Ethan, everyone," I started, my voice steadier than I felt. "I wasn't supposed to be up here. I was supposed to be a bridesmaid, celebrating my brother and his incredible fiancé. But Ethan uninvited me, and I need to tell you why." Gasps rippled through the tent, forks pausing midair. I pulled out the bank records, holding them up like evidence in a courtroom. "Ethan's been hiding a gambling problem, $30,000 drained from our family account. He lied to Lila, to all of us, to cover it up. And Mom," I locked eyes with her, her face pale as moonlight. "Mom knew and helped him hide it, even when it meant cutting me out." The tent went dead silent, the air thick with shock. Ethan stood, his chair scraping, eyes wild. "Soph, stop it!" he shouted, but I pressed on. "This isn't just about money. It's about trust, about family. Lila deserves the truth, and so do you all." Mom shot to her feet, her floral dress swaying as she pointed at me. "Sophia, you're ruining their day. You always make it about you." Her voice cracked, but the accusation stung like a slap. I gripped the mic tighter, my pulse racing. No, Mom. You made it about Ethan, covering his debts, blaming me for shining too bright. I'm done carrying that. The crowd murmured, some nodding, others whispering. Lila's eyes welled up, her hand clutching Ethan's arm, but she didn't look away. Ethan stumbled forward, his tux rumpled, voice breaking. "She's right," he choked out, the words slicing through the silence. I'm in deep. Gambling, debts, all of it. I was jealous of Soph, her success, her life. I thought if I hid it, I could fix it before anyone knew. He turned to Lila, tears streaking his face. I'm so sorry, babe. I didn't want to lose you. The tent felt like it held its breath, the weight of his confession hanging heavy. Lila stood, her white dress glowing under the lights, and took his hand. You should have told me, she whispered, voice firm but soft. We're a team, Ethan. A slow clap started from the back. Jamal, my student, his mom beside him, eyes proud. Others joined, a wave of support rising, not for the drama, but for the raw honesty. Lila crossed the stage, pulling me into a hug, her perfume floral and warm. Thank you, Soph, she murmured. You didn't ruin anything, you saved us. The crowd's applause grew, a release of tension, but Mom stayed rooted, her face a mix of shame and defiance. As the band struck up again, I stepped off the stage, my legs shaky. Mom grabbed my arm, her voice low and sharp. You humiliated us, she hissed. I pulled away, meeting her gaze. No, Mom, you humiliated yourself, keeping his secrets. We're done hiding. She flinched, but I walked away, joining Lila at the head table. The music swelled, and guests started dancing, but my heart was still racing. Ethan's confession was a start, but his promises to fix things? I'd heard them before. What would it take to rebuild what we'd lost? The reception tent in Napa buzzed with music and laughter. But as I stepped away from Mom's sharp words and rejoined Lila at the head table, the weight of Ethan's public confession lingered like a storm cloud. The applause had faded and guests were dancing under the fairy lights, but my heart still raced from the truth I'd forced into the open. Ethan's gambling, Mom's cover-up, it was out now, raw and real. As the night wound down, I knew the real work of healing was just beginning. Lila found me near the dessert table, her white dress glowing in the soft light, and pulled me into a tight hug. Soph, I can't thank you enough, she whispered, her voice thick. You didn't let him bury this. I hugged her back, the scent of her floral perfume grounding me. Ethan approached, his tux loosened, eyes red from tears or shame, or both. I'm sorry, Soph, he said, his voice barely above the band's strumming. I was a coward, pushing you out like that. I didn't want to face it. I nodded, my throat tight. You hurt me, Eth, but you hurt Lila worse. He glanced at her, then back at me, his shoulders slumping. I know. I'm gonna make this right. His words echoed the promises I'd heard before, but Lila's steady hand on his arm gave me a flicker of hope. Later, as guests trickled out, I found Mom alone by the vineyard's edge, staring at the dark rows of grapevines, her floral dress limp in the cool night air. I walked over, my heels sinking into the grass, and cut straight to it. Why'd you cover for him, Mom? Why let me take the fall? She turned, her face drawn, eyes avoiding mine. I thought I was protecting him, Sophia. He begged me not to tell. Said he'd fix it before the wedding. Her voice cracked, but I wasn't letting her off. Protecting him meant lying to Lila, to me. You've always favored him, and it's not just this. It's every trophy, every excuse you made for him. She flinched, wrapping her arms around herself. I didn't want him to feel less than you. You're so driven. He struggled, and I thought I could help. I shook my head, anger softening into exhaustion. Helping him shouldn't mean hurting me. Before she could respond, Uncle Ray, Dad's older brother, joined us, his weathered face kind but serious. He'd been quiet during the reception, but now he spoke up, leaning on his cane. "Sophia, I've been there," he said, his voice low. "Lost my savings to the ponies back in the 90s. Hid it from your aunt till it nearly broke us. Ethan's got a long road, but he's lucky you called it out." His story hit like a mirror, reflecting Ethan's mess and the family's silence. I nodded, grateful for his honesty, but the weight of Mom's choices still stung. Back at the hotel where the wedding party was staying, Ethan, Lila, and I sat in the lobby, the fireplace crackling as we hashed out next steps. Ethan pulled out his phone, showing us a local Gamblers Anonymous meeting he'd found, starting next week. "I'm going, I swear," he said, his voice earnest. Lila squeezed his hand, her engagement ring catching the light. "We'll do this together," she said, then looked at me. "Family therapy too, Soph? For all of us?" I agreed, the idea of rebuilding tempting but fragile. As we talked, Ethan's phone buzzed. A notification from that damn betting app, a quick game alert he hadn't deleted. My stomach twisted. Was this another false promise, like the one at his apartment? Alone in my hotel room later, the vineyard dark outside my window, I sat on the bed, shoes kicked off, and let the day sink in. Forgiveness wasn't easy. It was a jagged pill, sharp with the pain of Ethan's jealousy and Mom's favoritism. But Lila's strength, Uncle Ray's story, even the crowd's applause showed me we weren't alone. Trust was broken, but maybe it could be rebuilt, piece by piece. Still, that app notification gnawed at me. Ethan's heart seemed in the right place. But how long until he slipped again? The wedding was over, but the real test was just starting. Lying in that Napa hotel room, the vineyard silent outside, Ethan's latest betting app notification still haunted me like a ghost that wouldn't quit. His promises to change, Lila's hope, and Mom's half-hearted apologies felt like a fragile bridge over a deep chasm. Forgiveness was one thing, but trust? That was harder to rebuild. Over the next few months, though, our family took shaky steps forward, and I started to see glimmers of something better. Hope, maybe, that we could come out stronger. We started family therapy in a small office in Pasadena, the kind with worn armchairs and a coffee table stacked with self-help books. Ethan showed up to the first session in jeans and a nervous smile. Lila at his side, her hand never leaving his. Mom sat across from me, her posture stiff, still stinging from our vineyard confrontation. The therapist, a calm woman named Dr. Chen, guided us through the mess. Ethan's gambling, Mom's favoritism, my hurt. Ethan shared that he'd joined Gamblers Anonymous, attending weekly meetings in a church basement near Glendale. "It's tough," he admitted, his voice raw. "But I'm 3 weeks clean. No bets." Lila squeezed his hand, proud, but I caught his eyes darting to his phone, like it was a reflex. Later, in a session alone, he confessed he'd nearly placed a bet during a rough night, $100 on a basketball game, but stopped himself after calling his GA sponsor. The twist stung, but his honesty, the fact he'd pulled back, gave me a sliver of faith. Back at Lincoln High, my career was hitting new highs. My after-school history program, focused on local LA stories, got a grant from the city, letting us take kids to museums and archives. One day, as we prepped for a field trip, Jamal, my student from the wedding, lingered after class, his backpack slung low. "Miss Ramirez, that thing you did at the wedding, calling out your brother, it stuck with me." He shifted, shy. "I told my dad he needed help with his gambling. He's in a program now, like your brother." I swallowed hard, my throat tight. "That's huge, Jamal," I said, squeezing his shoulder. "You're stronger than you know." His grin, small but real, felt like a win bigger than any grant. Life wasn't all work, though. At a teacher's conference in San Diego, I met Ryan, a math teacher from a charter school in Oakland. He was all easy charm, with a quick laugh and a knack for breaking down calculus like it was a bedtime story. We bonded over bad conference coffee and swapped numbers, texting late into the night about everything from lesson plans to our favorite taco trucks. 6 months later, on a hike in Griffith Park, the LA skyline sparkling below, he got down on one knee with a simple silver ring. "Sophia, you're my kind of crazy. Marry me?" he said, grinning. I laughed, tears blurring the stars, and said yes. Lila was the first person I called, squealing like we were kids again. She'd become my rock. Our weekly coffee dates at that Santa Monica cafe now a ritual. Her updates on Ethan's progress mixed with wedding stories and her own real estate wins. Ethan was holding steady, mostly. He'd landed a better job at a new dealership, and Lila said he was saving for their honeymoon. But I wasn't naive. His near slip with that bet showed how fragile recovery could be. Therapy was helping, though. Mom started owning her part, admitting how she'd leaned too hard on Ethan's charm to define him, leaving me to fend for myself. "I'm learning, Sophia," she said one session, her voice softer. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Driving home from therapy one evening, the sunset painting the sky in pinks and oranges, I felt a shift. Ethan's recovery, my engagement, Lila's loyalty. It was proof we could rebuild, not just as a family, but as individuals. The road wasn't smooth, but we were moving forward, step by careful step. Still, I wondered, how strong was Ethan's resolve, and what would it take to keep us all on this path? Driving home from that therapy session, the LA sunset painting the sky in fiery hues, I felt a quiet strength settling in. Ethan's recovery, my engagement to Ryan, and Lila's unwavering support had woven a fragile but hopeful thread through our family's mess. It wasn't perfect. Ethan's near slip with gambling showed how easily things could unravel, but we were trying, and that counted for something. Now, a year later, as I sit in my Silver Lake apartment, the city's hum of familiar comfort, I'm ready to share what this journey taught me about family, truth, and standing tall in your own light. This whole ordeal, Ethan's gambling, Mom's favoritism, my own fight to be seen, showed me that family love isn't about blind loyalty. It's about truth, even when it hurts. Growing up, I thought love meant keeping quiet, letting Ethan shine while I dimmed my own light to avoid trouble. But confronting him at the wedding, laying bare his secrets, wasn't just about saving Lila or the family account. It was about refusing to let lies fester, about demanding honesty from the people who matter most. I learned that your personal shine, your achievements, your drive, doesn't have to cast shadows on others. It can lift everyone up if they let it. For me, that meant owning my role as a teacher, a sister, a fiancée without apology. Your light doesn't need to dim for someone else to glow. Life now feels like a new chapter. I'm still at Lincoln High, where my history program's thriving. Last month, we got a shout-out in the LA Times for our community storytelling project. Ryan and I are planning our own wedding, a small beachside affair in Malibu with tacos and a killer playlist. Ethan's still in recovery, hitting Gamblers Anonymous regularly, and he's got a promotion at the dealership, saving up for a house with Lila. Mom's softer now, joining our therapy sessions with less defensiveness, learning to see us both as equals. It's not perfect, but it's progress, like a garden growing back after a fire. Lila's become my sister in every way that counts. Just last week, she called me from her new real estate office, her voice bubbling over the phone. "Soph, we're pregnant!" she squealed, and I could hear Ethan cheering in the background. I laughed, tears pricking my eyes, picturing them as parents, building something new. We met for coffee at our usual Santa Monica spot, the ocean breeze carrying her excitement as she showed me ultrasound pics. "You're gonna be the coolest aunt," she said, hugging me tight. That moment, with the sun dipping low, felt like a promise we'd all keep fighting for each other. But I want to hear from you. Has your family ever faced a betrayal that shook you to your core? Maybe a secret someone kept? Or a time you had to stand up and call it out? How did you rebuild? Or are you still figuring it out? Drop your story in the comments. I read everyone, and trust me, you're not alone in this. If this moved you, hit like, drop your thoughts below, share this with a friend, and subscribe for the next episode. There's another story coming, one that'll make you question who you trust when the stakes are even higher. What happens when the person you'd never suspect is the one pulling the strings?